Let me introduce a little more about myself. My name is Tay Siu Yi. I am a consultant and trainer for data science and robotics. I teach in the university as well. And I have been working with data for more than 20 years in 2 countries, in Singapore and in France. Yes, I can speak a bit of French. Bonjour. And apart from that, in terms of my career history, I have been the head of Asia Pacific for global MNC before. All these are related to data. And I have also been a member of the Worldwide Council for Digital Strategy Measurements, which has to do with looking at what kind of metrics we should be using to measure success. I've also been involved in a media agency as a consultant, as an analytics director, and I've also been in a local company as the head of data before. And I've covered quite a broad range of industries: tech, telco, banking, aerospace, e-commerce, B2B, and such. So that's my breadth of experience in my career. Well, in terms of my academic, I actually hold my bachelor degree in robotics. And subsequently, I went on to have 2 masters, one in marketing, the other in artificial intelligence. And on top of that, I'm also a Mensa member. So that's my background. Well, what will we cover today? First of all, I think data scientist is becoming popular as a job title, but what exactly does data scientist do? What is the job of a data scientist? That's one of the things that I will help to uncover for you. I have been a data scientist before as a job, so that's why I can talk to you about it. I can also answer your questions about what the job is like. And what does it take to be a data scientist if you aspire or you know somebody aspires to be one? What is the requirement and how do people get hired to be a data scientist? And if you are not currently a data scientist, how do you make the jump if you're interested to go into this field as your future career path? Then if you start off as a data scientist, what else can you progress into as part of your career? And we'll also talk about, well, very interestingly, is there a figure that we can look at if we decide to be a data scientist? What kind of salary range can we look forward to earn? And well, other than the job title of a data scientist, what else is related to working in the field of data? So these will be some of the questions that we try to answer as we go through this evening. Can I check whether anybody have other questions in mind that you want to have them answered throughout the session? I can just slot in your questions when I come to a particular section. Let me just pause here to see if anybody have questions to ask. You can either type it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask a question, and I'll take note of what your question is. Anybody? No? Okay. Let's continue then. Well, let's start off with this particular definition. What exactly do we mean by being a data scientist? Well, data scientist is somebody who will determine what kind of questions you should be asking when you are trying to find information. So a data scientist is somebody who helps to get answers. But it is also important that it is the answer that you are looking for, and hence there is a need to know what are the right questions to ask and how to derive the right kind of questions to ask, so that the answer that you receive from the data scientist is really what you're looking for. So that's why it is not just answering questions that people ask you, but rather it is about trying to determine what kind of questions should we ask. And of course, yeah, I'll elaborate a little more about that later on. But when we have determined what kind of questions, what are the right questions to ask, of course, the next step then is, let's try to Yeah, then the other question is, let's try to get the answers for them. And of course, in the process of trying to get the answers, often data scientists will end up having to work out some kind of method to go from a question to an answer, which means that how is the answer being derived? How do you even figure out that this should be the correct answer? And why should people believe you that this is the correct answer? So there must be some sort of scientific method for you to figure out what is that answer for people, right? And that method comes in the form of developing models. What we data scientists term as a model means that it is some kind of calculation method that is being put into the computer such that the computer will do the calculation and churn out the answer in some form. So that's what we mean when we say having to develop predictive models for theorizing and forecasting. Theorizing means that whatever is that question, you have to form it in such a way that it can become mathematical. Because once that question is being turned into a mathematical statement or mathematical problem, then we can use maths to solve that question. And this is the part that we mean trying to implement using some kind of theory, theorize that. And apart from answering questions based on historical knowledge, that means in the past, this has already happened. And then we just prove that, yes, indeed, the calculations show that, yes, it is correctly being calculated as this event or this likelihood, this probability happen. But can we also predict that for the future when similar circumstances are in place? So this is the forecasting part of it. Well, that's a bit high level. I know it's describing things in a larger picture, but also let's look at this. On a day-to-day basis, what could a data scientist be doing as a job? For example, if a data scientist steps into the office, what is that person doing within the office? Well, a data scientist could end up trying to look for patterns, trends in data set, which means that we actually will plow through huge data sets, usually can be quite large, and trying to figure out what is the trend, what is the pattern out of all these data sets. Of course, it is not just sitting there trying to stare at the computer screen and figure out, oh, is there a straight line pattern here? Is there a grouping of data here? But there are certain methods that we apply in order to find out what is relationship of data, what is grouping of data, and such. So these are the kind of things that data scientists will have to learn before you become a data scientist. And these are what we call as data science studies. And of course, after you have found what kind of patterns and trends in your data set, the next thing is create some kind of logic in order to form some kind of theory, some kind of hypothesis about your data. So this is what we mean, create algorithms and data models, which is being used as a mathematical representation of the logic represented in the data. So this is what we are trying to do. And then sometimes it is not so straightforward. If given a set of variables, if we say there is a linear relationship, that means directly proportional. If, for example, if we say the stock price keeps going up, what's going to happen? People will want to buy, right? So that is a very simplistic example of a linear relationship. If the price goes up, therefore there will be more buying. But in real life, a lot of times it's not so direct. There are multiple factors in play, and we would want to create some kind of representation that's more realistic. And because it is not always a straight line relationship, Therefore, it can be other types of relationship among the variables, right? So this is where we say, okay, other than straight line, we can also use machine learning techniques to improve the quality of our data in order to get answers on what are people looking for in our digital marketing, and hence what kind of product should we be selling? How do we group our customers so that we can target them in a more effective way? So this is where we will start applying the data from finding out the patterns to create some kind of logic and then implement machine learning techniques in them. And after we have done all these, the next thing is there must be a way for us to explain this to people. Because if you're going to go to the marketing team and say, hey, guess what? I found out that people are looking for new products. This kind of handphone's not popular anymore. People are looking for a different kind of handphone. People are looking for those that can flip open, you know. So then the next thing is, yeah, if you have this result, how do you effectively explain it well, communicate well, in order for people to take on the recommendations from your analysis? Because people may want to further understand what else is related to your findings, and perhaps even to the extent of how did you derive all these findings? What did you do? So that is why the ability to communicate is quite important as a data scientist as well. And if people say, oh, this is good, can you keep repeating this analysis every month? That is where it comes to deploy that data tool, either using Python, R, SAS, or one of these kind of tools. And other than that, it is also important as a data scientist to stay on top of innovations in the data science field. Why? Because data science is a field that is still evolving. There are new things coming up. Like ChatGPT is something that just emerged quite recently as well, and people are exploring quite extensively with what ChatGPT can do, right? And there's a lot of, people who are involved in academics and research, they are still coming out with a lot of new ideas within the field of data science. So there's a lot of new things coming up. And of course, when there's something new, as a data scientist, you would want to take advantage of these kind of new techniques or new mindset, new thinking of how to do certain types of analysis. So this is what a data scientist would do for a job. Let me just pause here to see if anybody have questions to ask. I don't see anything in the chat at the moment. No? Okay, let me continue then. Well, there is also the term data analyst, which we also talked about last month. And let's do some comparison, because sometimes the job title says data analyst, but perhaps that person is doing a little bit of data science work as well. Or, what is the similarity, or what's the difference between these two? Let's take a look. So both data scientists and data analysts are involved in working with data. And when they work with data, what they do is they try to look for trends, patterns in the data in order to reveal what are the new ways for us to look for information. We try to derive some kind of insights so that it helps us in making decisions about how should we do our marketing, how should we improve our processes, how should we understand our customers better by analyzing them and figuring out what they like, what they don't like, what are the trends in the market, what kind of products are getting popular, all these kind of decisions that we're trying to do for the company. Of course, the bottom line is, how can the company gain more profit and earn more revenue? That is usually the bottom line, right? And in order to arrive at that, there'll be a lot of analysis of information in order to figure out this kind of what sort of decisions to make, right? So this is one of the things that both data scientists and data analysts is trying to achieve on behalf of the company as an objective. And these kind of works could include things like data preparation. Of course, you have your data extraction, you collect data, and then you prepare your data for analysis. Then you carry out all the different types of analysis that you do, and you prepare your findings in the form of dashboards or reports and some kind of visualizations of charts and diagrams in order to communicate, in order to explain to people and tell them, well, this is what is can be a recommendation for the future of the company in terms of how we should make our decision on how to operate the company, how to optimize, how to buy, how to sell, and such, right? So these are the kind of things that is common between data scientists and data analysts. Now, one of the differences, though, is that as a data scientist, usually you have very direct questions to answer. For example, it could be that you are a digital marketeer, you've been running a few campaigns, and you want to find out which campaign has been performing the best out of this few campaigns that you've been running for the past 3 months. Well, that is a question that the data analyst can answer because it is direct. You just want to know which campaign performed the best. That is the question, and you just need to carry out some data analysis to get the answer. So this is what we mean by usually data analysts would support teams that already have set goals in mind. What you're looking for, what kind of information are you trying to get? Whereas for a data scientist, often they're expected to form their own questions, perhaps even come up with some assumptions, some hypotheses about the data before they can find out what is the answer to a certain question. So for example, we talked about the marketing campaigns just now, right? So if you've been running a campaign, if you've been running a few campaigns, and now instead of trying to find out which campaign performed the best, now your question is a little different. You are trying to find out what elements within the campaign that caused the campaign to do well. Is it because you have is it because you have animation within your campaign? Is it because your campaign highlights certain things? Is it because your campaign targeted the right audience? Is it because of something? So trying to figure out what elements of your campaign cause that campaign to perform well. That could be the question for the data scientist to figure out, because then it will involve trying to mix and match a few factors, a few possible reasonings, perhaps analyze a few variables together in order to derive an answer of which elements play an important role in the success of a campaign. So that would be the difference between what kind of questions a data scientist would answer versus what kind of questions a data analyst would answer. And also, the work of a data scientist often involves developing models. It could be using machine learning, and it could be using some kind of advanced programming. So often, quite often, in fact, the data scientist would need to write some kind of code, some kind of programs in order to carry out that kind of analysis and produce an answer for questions. Whereas for a data scientist, not always have to write programming codes. Sometimes it's just carrying out analysis mathematically. You could even be using an Excel spreadsheet to do your analysis for a data analyst. And you can apply some kind of statistical model, mathematical calculation, formulas, even just through observations, or it could be using a process. That means there is a certain step to do the analysis. You just have to follow step 1, separate the data. Step 2, you break down the data into smaller, bigger, sort it out, and then you break it down into groups. You know, there is a certain defined step to carry out that particular analysis using a process. So that is also the kind of work that a data analyst could be doing. So this is the difference, in terms of the kind of questions being answered, the kind of problems being worked on, and the method that they use in order to look for answers for those questions. So that's the difference. If you have questions, just feel free to type it out in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask me along the way. I don't see any questions in the chat yet, but yeah, just feel free to pop them in. Let me carry on. So as a matter of fact, there are quite a number of data scientists who begin their career as data analysts or statisticians, and they realize that, hey, when they start picking up programming, they gain an interest to delve more into machine learning and data science, and hence decided that, yeah, why not? Let me just become a data scientist. So now that is a possible route. In fact, I started that way as well. Well, who are the typical employers of data scientists? Where do data scientists work? These are the few broad industries where they hire a lot of data scientists. Of course, these are not the only places where data scientists work. Because data is so widespread nowadays, it's just everywhere. You can say almost in any field, you can find data scientists. So let me highlight quite a few that are more popular nowadays. One is public sector. That means you work as a civil servant for the government. And it can be in formulation of public policies. Where does data science comes in here? It is because sometimes when you need to do a study of the population, perhaps got to break them down according to their age group, according to their education level, according to income level, and then you try to mix and match all these groups of people trying to figure out. So when you apply for a CHARS card, how do they end up saying that these are the criteria for a blue card, red card, no red card, sorry, orange card and green card, right? So there must be some kind of calculation done in the back end to figure out all these kind of things. So this is where quite possibly data science is being applied. There is also surveillance and crime detection being used as well. There are a lot of CCTVs everywhere. Quite impossible to hire somebody to just watch the screen throughout the entire day and just trying to catch if anything suspicious is happening by looking at all the multiple screens, right? So this is also another possibility where we can have data science being used to do all the analysis and detection of whatever abnormalities that we're looking for. And in entertainment and retail, content recommendations, like if you listen to Spotify, you know, they are very clever in recommending you what is the next song you should listen to. When you watch Netflix, they also recommend you what movies you should be watching next based on what is your history of consumption, right? And even in entertainment and both retail, there's a lot of gaming and game elements being introduced into the ad, into your interaction with the company. And in digital marketing, how do you more effectively target your audience through advertising so that you don't waste too much money trying to spend on marketing and advertising? That is really streamlining, optimizing it. And how do people come up with all this kind of logic behind this targeted advertising? Well, there's actually a lot of maths and a lot of data science that goes in the background. And in healthcare, when pharmacies or companies do testing of drugs, there is a need to sift through a lot of data, trying to figure out what is that combination of elements that could put together, and also match that against what kind of results do you get from the test subjects, which are the patients. So there's a lot of this analysis that involves a very huge amount of data, and certainly quite a good place for data science to be applied. And there are also images that are being analyzed. For example, your MRI scans, your X-rays, your CT scans, all these are images that are being used. And one of the popular use case actually is detection of cancer cells out of all these kind of images. Although there are trained professionals who can study the image and straight away tell you that there are presence of cancer cells, but you know, if in the absence of this kind of very specialized professionals, can there be a mass testing of people and have some kind of high volume processing of all these images to quickly tell people, are you at risk or are you not at risk? You know, that are the kind of things that people are trying to work on. There's also the management of healthcare records, meaning you have your patient record, that you have certain history, you have allergies, you have been issued with certain kind of medicine before, and you just have a whole lot of records that needs to be compiled, needs to be followed up on. When should you be triggered with a reminder of some sort? So all these kind of management of healthcare records is also a huge amount of data where we can apply data science. And in the area of finance and banking, quite popular to have data scientists working there as well. It can be financial forecasts and projections into the future of what are the possible market movements. Also, fraud detection. Catch people who are trying to launder money, trying to do criminal activities across financial systems. And also within finance and banking, there's a lot of operations that requires human involvement. And when you have a high volume of such manual operations, the company or the bank end up having to hire a lot of people. So one of the direction is to automate this kind of operations. Well, of course, the question then is, does it mean that people are losing jobs? Actually, the answer is no, not directly, because it is just changing the kind of work that people are doing. People are still needed, but it's just the type of work done is different. So instead of the person who is trying to clear the checks that you put in to the bank, right? In the past, somebody got to manually look through all the checks, check whether the signature is valid, check all the figures and such. But when it is being automated, people are still needed because people are needed to validate whether all these results are correct, and also to handle any exceptional cases that comes up from the normal processing, the routine processing of all these operations. So people are still needed, actually, just a different skill set that is being employed to do the work. And of course, in tech, we hear a lot in the news about product innovation. What are the new things cropping up? Well, product here could be physical products, or it could be virtual products. Well, at the beginning of this session, some of us were just talking about the virtual world becoming popular, like metaverse. That is considered a product, right? Other than that, there is also process optimization. That means how can a company be more efficient so that they can complete a certain piece of work within a shorter time, or requiring less people, or requiring less steps. Well, again, that kind of process improvement or process optimization is a place where data science can come in. There is also customer behavior analysis, which means that you're trying to understand your customer better so that you can be better, so that you can serve your customers better, having understood and known their needs. Okay, so these are the kind of industries and places where data scientists work. So, well, before I talk about what does it take to be a data scientist, let me just pause here for a while to see if anybody have questions so far. Anybody? No? Okay. Well, the interesting question next is, what does it take to be a data scientist if this is something that interests you? It definitely helps when you have a degree related to one of the following subjects, which is data science, computer science, or statistics. Of course, the obvious is if you want to do data science work, then you should get a degree in data science. Yes. Just like if you want to be an accountant, you should get a degree in accountancy. Yes, that is correct. However, there are also people who studied other fields but end up taking up a job as a data scientist as well. That's quite possible. Of course, what happens then is you have to prove your credibility in the ability to perform the work as a data scientist, right? So other than these official credentials, actually, there is also these other set of skills that are relevant as well as important for a data scientist. It's not just saying that you have a degree, therefore you qualify to do the work. What employers look for is that you have relevant skills, which covers this kind of things. You have to know programming languages because the work of a data scientist involves writing programs, writing computer codes. And because there is a need to summarize your findings in a way that you can communicate with people, there is also a need for you to know how to do data visualizations, either using Excel, Power BI, Tableau, ClickSense. Any of this is fine. It doesn't mean that you need to show a cert. Most of the time, people just need to know that you are able to take on a job that involves using this kind of tools. And of course, if you are a data scientist, you should know machine learning, at least at a basic level, and grow within your role to learn more about it as well. Machine learning covers quite a broad range of different types of machine learning. For example, supervised learning, unsupervised learning, deep learning, and such. These are just examples. There are many more of different types of models. You should be comfortable with big data and know how to make use of big data. The reason is because the work of a data scientist involves analyzing data. And where does your data come from? Usually, we are looking at huge volume of data. It is not something that is just looking at one Excel spreadsheet. It's a lot more than that. So big data sits in platforms such as Hadoop, AWS, which stands for Amazon Web Services, GCP, Google Cloud Platform, or Azure, which is from Microsoft. These are the popular ones. There are, of course, other tools involved in big data. And also very important is the ability for a data scientist to communicate well. Because in the job of a data scientist, you sometimes just have to go around asking people to provide you with information. And that is where your fact-finding skills, your interview skills, your conversation skills of trying to derive information by talking with people is important. And after that, after you receive information, you also have to give information to people. How you present information in a verbal form, in speaking, in presenting is also an important skill, as well as putting down your findings in writing. So you are expected to be comfortable in writing things out as well. Writing your results, writing your explanations, writing your thought process of how you derive at a certain conclusion. So these are the skills that are considered important. Okay, and a lot of people ask, does it mean that this data science skills are meant for all the fresh grads with data science degree and they have an advantage over people with a few years of experience? Not so, because people with a few years of experience, you have what is known as transferable skills. Whatever work that you do, you have gained knowledge about a certain industry, a certain domain, a certain area, a certain process of how things are done within the company. So those are actually knowledge that are important, because data science could be just the mathematical part of it, or deriving the logic of a certain aspect, right? But all these kind of mathematical skills must be applied within a certain context. It cannot be just doing pure maths. That is probably what people do in school, but at work, you need to apply all these within a certain environment, within a certain context in order to have true meaning for applying all these kind of data science. So your skills that you have even before you become a data scientist, you've been gathering requirements, trying to understand things from people, that you learn from people. You have been solving problems. You have the domain knowledge of the industry that you're in. And you have been, when you solve problems, you also think through logically, you weigh between the pros and cons, you think between what are the possible options, and you have to manage your stakeholders, people who are your end users, people who are your managers, people who are your customers, and you would have to manage a project from the beginning to the end, ensuring that you keep within budget, you keep within a certain timeline. So all these are the kind of skills that are transferable and still required even when you become a data scientist. Presentation skills, report writing skills included. So these are important and you shouldn't discard them. You should enhance them, which also means that if you're going to revamp your resume to apply for jobs as a data scientist, these are the transferable skills that you should highlight and say that, yes, these are the things that you bring with you as part of your experience. And you're not a pure newbie when you go into the data science field. So these are the kind of things that are worth highlighting. There are also specializations within data science. Data science is very broad. So there are field specializations as well as application specializations. Field specialization means that you can specialize in a particular aspect of data science, which is machine learning. Everything related to machine learning, you go very deep into it. All the different types of machine learning, when to use what kind of machine learning, under what kind of circumstances, what kind of assumptions you make to derive this kind of results. So that is going deep into a particular specialization of data science. You can also specialize in deep learning, which is a lot being used in image processing and video analysis. You can also specialize in natural language processing because computer understands codes and numbers, but not a human spoken language. But this is a new field that's being derived where when we have human spoken languages, no, not just English, any language, okay, it can become an input for the computer such that they can understand the entire meaning of a speech or a written text and be able to translate and churn out answers for whatever things that we ask for. And these are the kind of things being used in ChatGPT as well. There is a natural language processing involved. And this is one of the specialized field in data science. There is also knowledge graph, which means that you think of your data as being related to each other and it forms a whole graph, as opposed to the traditional way of how we store data, which is in a table form with rows and columns. That is traditional way of storing data, which is still being used. But a different way of keeping data is called a knowledge graph, which means that you store information in terms of your nodes and linkages. And this is how our social media information is being captured. How do you know that this person is a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend? It is all stored and being put together as if it is a network. And that representation of data is knowledge graph. It's a completely different way of storing data, and including the way of how you analyze this kind of data, how you apply your mathematics on this kind of data. It's completely different from the traditional method of rows and tables. So it is a field of specialization by itself. There is also something known as a recommender system. For example, when you look at a website and you go online shopping, how do they end up knowing that they want to recommend you this blouse, or they want to recommend you, oh, if you buy this blouse, then it matches with this handbag? Or we talked about Netflix. How do they know that you're going to be like, you are going to like Korean drama? You know, how do they know? Well, actually, this kind of recommendation is a specialized field of mathematics, and it has its own sets of formulas that's being worked out, and how you do calculations in order to come up with recommendations. That's why it is actually a specialized field within data science as well. I just highlighted a few. There are many more specializations in data science, and these are the kind of things we call field specializations, because it is a field of study in data science that you can specialize in. On top of that, there is also something known as blockchain that is up and coming. Blockchain actually is not data science, but it is a technology, and it is also something that people can specialize in. So I just put it here as another example of specializations. In terms of application specialization, that means in what kind of area, what kind of application do you use that particular data science? For example, image recognition and analysis. When given picture, you try to find out, hey, is there a certain object within this picture, or is there a certain person, face recognition from a photograph and such. So image recognition and analysis is popular, and it uses machine learning, it uses deep learning, it uses a few other types of data science as well, but this is an application. Other than static images, there's also video analysis. We can also branch into speech recognition and analysis. It can also be text analysis. And there is also route planning for logistics, distribution, and even for aircrafts. What is the best route to plan out for all these vehicles? Oops, sorry. And also augmented reality is up and coming. So these are places or areas where data science can be applied, and you can specialize in one of these kind of applications as well. So these are different ways of how you can specialize in data science. And how to get started, if you're interested. Of course, get a foundational education, either a degree, a diploma, or online course, or one of these to get yourself started. And if you decide that a certain area of specialization is of great interest to you, you want to pursue that, well, go ahead, pursue that. And also sharpen relevant skills. What do we mean by relevant skills is the ones that were highlighted earlier on: your programming skills, data visualization, machine learning, big data, communication. And beyond that, go ahead and work on projects with real data, either your own hobby or something that you picked up as part of your school project or your studies, or even your current work. You can even try out and say, hey, why not? Let me just try something small at work. And then keep a record of all these projects that you do so that you develop a portfolio of your work, and you can have something to talk about as what you do in data science. So you have to practice presenting your findings. Could be spoken, could be writing it out, explaining what are your conclusions, and prepare yourself for data science interviews. Why do I say you need to prepare yourself? Because it's not usually, data science interviews sometimes can be different from normal interview, depending on how technical is the interviewer. If the person who interviews you is also from a data science background, you can end up being asked technical questions on the spot. And there are also cases where during the interview, you can be asked to type out codes on the screen on the spot as well. So these are real cases, okay? And that's why you need to be prepared when you go for data science interviews, that you really know your stuff well, and rehearse them mentally, and be prepared if you are being asked to produce codes on the spot. And of course, well, your first job could always be a entry-level data scientist job, and you can progress forward from there. And as you progress, consider getting more advanced degrees or certification for data science. And one of the good way to learn is, of course, get a mentor, get somebody that you can interact with on a regular basis, who can provide guidance, provide advice, or be involved in a data science community. These could be online communities where people just talk about how they solve problems using Python, how they use different types of models. You can join LinkedIn groups, you can join, well, actually one of the good way to get started is when you attend a particular course or you take up a certain degree in data science, stay in touch with the people that you study together with. That is your data science community. Okay. And one of the other ways that you can develop a portfolio of your work is go sign up for some of these competitions, you know, data competitions, because it will train you to think how to solve problems in a certain way using data science. Well, that is a good way of getting experience. Of course, if you get to win in these competitions, it's a bonus, but otherwise, I think this would be very good places where you can gain experience, like hackathons, like join short sessions or competitions, both local and overseas. You can just, well, try it out. And in terms of career path, from a data scientist, these are the different branches that you can pursue as you progress. You can go from being technical to non-technical. That is possible, and people have done that before as well. And it is because as they progress, they realize that they develop a certain specialization that they become more and more interested in. You can become a business analyst, operations analyst, marketing analyst, healthcare analyst, where you go very deep into a particular domain specialization. Or as a data scientist, you can specialize further and branch into being a data architect or a data engineer, or even specialize as a machine learning engineer. That means you know about a lot of different types of data models for different types of problem solving, different situations. That is your specialization. Or you can move up in management to be a data science manager, to manage a team of data scientists, could include data analysts as well. You can become head of a data department, or you can even progress to be a chief data officer or chief data scientist. So these are the possible routes for you to go into management. You can also go into consultancy to be a data science consultant, to be a data strategist for clients. You can also go into training, either corporate or academic, become a lecturer. These are the possible career paths that you can pursue. And other than career paths, you can also specialize in domains that we have talked about earlier in these different industries. Now, next come to the interesting part, right? How much does a data scientist earn? Sorry. Caveat here, it really varies according to the scope of work, the seniority and experience level. Of course, your reputation, your credibility, and the kind of industry where you work, whether you cover just Singapore alone or you cover the region, you cover global, you know, this all sorts of variations on how much people can earn. So let me show you some numbers. Interested to see? Well, here, according to Glassdoor and Indeed, it's a range from 6,000 to 7,000. Well, the range actually is very, very broad. Okay, if you look at the one on the right-hand side here, it says that data scientists, you can also progress to senior data scientists earning 8,000 a month. A lead data scientist could be 10,000 a month. So, and if you look at the small print here, this is average. Well, the thing is, the range is very broad because the variations in the work of a data scientist is also very broad. Okay? You may say that, well, this is a starting pay. Does it mean that fresh grads can get this kind of pay? Yes and no. It depends on what the undergrad was doing during internship as well. It also, if you are switching career, it also depends on what was your last drawn, because usually employers tend to look at what was your last drawn and then match it against that to give you an increment. So it is not a definite thing that, wow, you start off means always must minimum 6,000. No, it is not a hard and fast rule that you always get this kind of figure. It depends on a few factors, a few HR factors, in fact, to look at what is the range of salary that you get. Well, data scientists in demand in Singapore, there is an article here that I thought would be interesting for us to go into. So let me just switch over and share with you this article. Let me just highlight a few things instead of reading everything here. Is Singapore good for data science? The short answer is yes, because we are going very big into data and tech. And what is driving the demand? Well, there is a government push, there is also industry push, there is also both public and private sector trying to go more into making use of data and trying to derive the best advantages they can get from data. What companies are looking for, of course, technical skills is one, but also look at this. Communication abilities is very important. Somebody who can only do the work but cannot explain, cannot communicate, don't know how to ask for information from others and give information to people is a handicap. Therefore, communication abilities is very, very important when you work in the field of data. And then here it says, what's the range of data scientist salary in Singapore? Well, you see, this is quite a broad range as well. It is quite diverse. Okay, so let me go back to this one that we were looking at earlier. Hang on. So perhaps take a look on your own. Do I have the aptitude to be a data scientist? The question you should ask is, are you usually curious, inquisitive, always asking why are things like that? You know, do you enjoy solving puzzles and solving problems, you know, like maths problems? Like when there are riddles of, you know, if there are 20 chickens and 10 ducks and how many legs and all that, do you like, I don't want to do this kind of thing? Or are you the kind, oh, I want to go and figure out what's the answer for this, I'm curious. You know, which type of personality are you? And are you comfortable with computer programming? Even if not done it before, but when people say do computer programming, are you the kind that say, no, I don't want to do any of that? Or are you the kind that will go in and, hey, yeah, why not? Let me give it a try and see what I can get out of it. So this already tells you whether or not you have a liking to be a data scientist, because if you become a data scientist, that is going to be your everyday job. And it matters because it's going to be a case when you wake up in the morning and, hey, I look forward to my work, you know, I want to go and figure out this thing and try to get an answer out of it. Yeah, you feel driven to go and get things done, as opposed to you wake up, I have to go work again, a problem again. You know, it's like, which one are you going to be? So if you feel that you enjoy these kind of things, then yeah, there is a possibility you may enjoy being a data scientist. Who knows? But of course, the question then is, if naturally you don't enjoy these kind of things, does it mean that it cannot be developed, it cannot be nurtured? The question then is, can attitudes change? Can our personality change? If your answer is yes, then of course the answer to this is yes. People can change. And that's the reason why we conduct classes, we teach things, right? Because it is possible for people to develop new skills, new knowledge, new attitudes, new preferences, new likings. Yes, it's possible. And of course, what domain knowledge can I leverage on if I decide to be a data scientist, whether you want to be a generalist or a specialist, non-technical versus technical. Of course, as a data scientist, you start off by being technical, but Do you have a direction in mind that eventually you may want to go into management and hence be less technical, or eventually you want to go into teaching and continue to be technical? Or what kind of skills do I need to pick up? Communication, presentation skills are very important. Project management skills, do you need that? Programming skills, do you need that to add on to your whole repertoire of skills? Yes, those are the kind of things to consider. And other than data scientists and data analysts, which we have talked about in the past, these are the kind of range of data-related careers that we can look at as possibly possible options for yourself. As you branch out from being data scientists, you can specialize, very specialized and very technical as a machine learning engineer, or you can be a data engineer. Data engineer means how do you get data to go from one location, one data source, to place into another data storage? How do you mix and match data to become an aggregator in some way? So all these are the kind of work that data engineers would do. You can also be a data architect. That means you design how data should be stored. How do you group data together, or how do you separate data by country, by age group, by whatever, and such that when people need data, it's easy to join and pool data in a certain combination in order to effectively use the data. Okay, so that is data architect. You can also be a data visualization engineer. You specialize in knowing how to present information, because there is a certain science behind the use of color, the use of font, the use of certain types of charts and all that. It is both an art and a science to it. And that kind of skills are what becomes the specialization of a data visualization engineer. On the non-technical side, that you can become a specialist in a certain domain, or you can become a data governance analyst as well. It means you will want to establish certain data standards. If you look at dates within your data storage should always be day followed by month followed by year, not the other way around. If you keep customer name, you should always separate first name, last name. You know, these are the kind of things that you say, okay, these are the data standards, the policies that we implement within the entire data storage, so that there is a certain form of data standardization, and also ensuring that you meet privacy requirements like our PDPA in Singapore, GDPR in Europe, and all the other policies. So that is data governance. Okay. Now, sorry that it went over a little. Are there any questions from anybody? You can unmute yourself and ask questions as well. Any questions? Well, if not, then let me talk about the other courses that we offer. E-commerce, digital advertising, Google Analytics, social media management, and content strategy. These are the kind of courses that we offer from Imarsity that you can sign up for, find out more from our website. And as part of our career series seminars, the ones in black are what we have already had in the past. The next upcoming one is digital advertising, will be held next month on the 11th of May. So you can scan this QR code to find out more and also to sign up for these courses. And while you're doing that, feel free to pop in any questions that you may have. Any questions from anybody? Well, if not, that's all for our session today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shui. Yeah, for those of us who maybe join us a little bit later, no worries. If you have already signed up for the webinar, the recording for this webinar will be sent to you on Saturday maybe evening. With that, then you will be able to go to our Teachable platform Teachable is a video learning platform, and you'll be able to see all the past webinars in this career series also. Okay, so any further questions? Feel free to ask. Yeah, if not, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.